Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Redivine Your Life. Today, we are going to talk about feeling kind of in the limbo of your flow and kind of feeling like you're in the eye of the storm and just kind of waiting for something to happen, like a shift, but not really sure how or what, or feeling kind of like in a funk and how to navigate out of that funk and find yourself in a more neutral ground and kind of just bring yourself back to a more peaceful place. Yeah. So we're going to dive right into that. I think we can maybe start by talking about how this holiday season is feeling so far. We got New Year's right around the corner. I know for me, it was some of the holiday events that I went to, which all of my things were family oriented with my direct family or small extensions of that. And I feel like some of them were stressful and some of them were more fun, but for the most part, like I love my family, I do, but I feel like I could have um it didn't feel worth the risk. Like it feels like every time you leave your house, it's like you have to calculate the risk and feel
Mm,
guilty about the like it feels I feel guilty leaving my house during a pandemic. Like that's a really weird thing, even if you're not going anywhere besides like outside. And like
yeah.
if I go anywhere other than for a walk, I feel like I should limit the amount of exposure that I have with people. And that's just because as a healthcare worker, I know that the less exposure and like the more social distancing and the more we stay home, the more it's going to help with like decrease the spread of things. When you're not touching people and being with people, you can't really spread things. But that also makes it feel really weird, like when you're trying to spend time with your family and like stuff like that. So I don't know how you felt. And it's not even just the holidays. I've kind of felt like in this weird in between like waiting game phase for like the past 2 weeks, kind of, or like the past week and a half,
Mm,
maybe. And it's
mhm.
just kind of feels like it's been growing. Like last week, I had this moment where I was like, I feel like most of the world is checking out as
Yeah.
Christmas approaches. It's like the world just checks out. And then when Christmas happens, it happens. And then New Year's happens. And it feels like people start to check back in.
Mhm. And it sucks because Christmas is it's always been such a special holiday for everybody. And like in my family, Christmas is always huge. We always put so much effort into getting everyone the absolute perfect presents and just like living in the happiest day ever, which is Christmas. And it just really sucked knowing that everyone that was at our Christmas was just like in a really funky mindset. And I know that I know that everyone, we had all talked about our previous experiences, like the past couple weeks, everything's just kind of felt different. And then, of course, on top of everything else, there's just that lingering COVID thought that you're always thinking of. You're just like, oh shit, what if someone here is sick and they don't know it? Like, what if we all end up leaving and we all end up getting sick? Like, I had talked to my sister and we both have been kind of feeling funky, but also that might just be like a mental thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's really tough to navigate like wanting to be responsible and wanting to honor the fact that we're in a pandemic. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really tough that I try not to compare how I'm living to others because it's not really it's everybody's choice what they're doing with how they're trying to live through this pandemic. And as much as people think vaccinating themselves is the only thing they can do to decrease to help, a lot of what they can do to help, what people can do to help besides like getting vaccinated and trying to take care of yourself is like staying home. Like it's
Yeah.
like literally just like being okay with not being home. I had a couple of people not like hit me up to go out because they know I don't go out really. I mean, pre-pandemic, I don't really go out to drink, but like that they were going out for different holiday things or different people were going out for drinks. And as much as it's nice to do those types of things and like to go out to shows and everybody's like, show your proof of X and you can come out with no mask on. And it's like, I don't understand how that we're promoting this shit right now. How you can
Mm-hmm.
even I know the entertainment industry is taking a giant plunge. Like I know that physical things, like tell me about it. My business is supposed to be run on hands-on healing. Like if you don't
Yeah.
think I understand the effects of not being able to do things in real life, we get it, but it's really tough that you can make someone feel so bad for wanting to go see their family and just spending time in close quarters with their family. And then there's other people going out and being in bars and stuff like that. So it's
Mm.
very the icky feelings, the shit feelings that people are feeling, I think come from many different areas. The guilt of if they're being safe or responsible enough, like despite, regardless of like how proactive they feel like they can be, at the end of the day, we're all like still needing each other's company, and we all still need that interaction and that stuff like that, which is why it's kind of a weird balance to walk, a weird line to walk.
Yeah, absolutely. And like sometimes it takes a couple days to even process emotions when it comes to things like that. Because
Mm-hmm.
my sister and her husband and their baby were actually supposed to come here to visit us for Christmas. And I was so devastated that they didn't make it. But now, like a couple days later, I'm able to look back at that and I'm like, I'm really kind of glad that they didn't end up being able to come because I would not want to put that child at risk for as
Yeah.
many people I had in my household at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's like, I mean, there's a risk in living life in general. There's a risk
Mhm.
in doing different things. I mean, even like a job risk, like my job was like a hazard. Like, yeah, I mean, obviously like all like the normal reasons, but physically too, like on your body, like people think of um your job wearing you out just because it's a long hours and stuff like that, but it can also be physically demanding and mentally demanding and all those different other types of things, and they just leave us at risk. So
Mhm.
we're always like at risk of doing overdoing,
Mm.
and stuff like that. And I think even trying to navigate like during a pandemic, this was something, balance is something we've always been trying to navigate and to figure out, like having that balance between socializing and recharging and stuff like that. But when you feel obligated, I think that's the biggest problem, is to feel obligated
Yeah.
in our society. And like I think that's something that I feel like I deal with a lot with my coaching, is
Mhm.
teaching people how to follow their intuitive callings rather than what they feel obligated to do, and not just ignoring things that they feel obligated to do, but really dissecting and working through the obligation and figuring out what resistance they have towards why they feel like they have to be doing that thing. It usually stems from something else. Feeling obligated, like feeling like you don't have a choice, stems from something else. And I think that
Mhm.
that kind of relates to feeling like stuck and like feeling like in that yuck. But if you want to go navigate towards more of like the funky, I guess, that we were talking about, I think is more of like, I just feel like we've been in like a time warp. I feel like each month
Yeah.
goes by and life, like the months happen, the seasons change, but it doesn't feel like anything's really changing. I don't know about you.
Oh my gosh, that's a beautiful way to describe it because honestly, if I feel the same way and that makes perfect sense now that you put it into perspective into those words for me. That's exactly how it feels to me. It's just this lingering feeling that I am just existing and everything's just like moving
Mhm.
past you.
Mhm. And it's really weird because it's like trying to be present and stuff like that. And even, I've been off with like my meditation practices and stuff like that. I haven't been doing
Everything.
certain things, right? Like I just feel like because there's no finish to anything, there's no like real start and there's no real finish date to anything, because we're all kind of in this like, well, when the pandemic ends, we'll resume our lives. And even when we say things like, I accept that this is not going anywhere, doesn't actually feel real. It still feels like I'm like, but we can just chill for now because it's like it's a pandemic. We're just going to wait it out. Like I feel like we're in the eye of the storm and there's just
Mm-hmm.
chaos going on all around us. But because there's no immediate chaos in my life, like I feel safe. But it also feels like I'm waiting for the other side of the storm to just like come and take us like somehow.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't really know
100%.
how that I'm over there. I don't really know how that feeling I, it's hard to describe. That's the best way I can describe it. I don't know how that feeling relates to, I don't know if that's a relatable feeling. I know you relate to it in like a general scheme with COVID, but like I also feel that way about your actual like life. And that's why when we talk about perspective and being present right now, we talk about not weighing so heavily on the timeliness of it and just being in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
But we have we have memories. So we do have the ability to like conjure time. Like we have a timeline because we can compare the present moment to something else that's happened. So I remember what we talked about earlier. I was like, I feel very, very much like a spiritual being, especially when I try to connect with my higher self and with more spiritual practices like meditation, altered states of consciousness, like Reiki, and, different forms of spiritual practice, whether you call it praying or whatever you call it, like mindset work and stuff like that. But I also feel so human. And I
Mm.
also feel so like unable, like capable, but limited,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. And I think that that goes for like the rest of the world too right now, is I feel like everyone just feels stuck in being human right now.
Hmm. Yeah. And it's like your basic human needs. We need water and food and, stuff like that. And I have a very interesting perspective on like quality of life and basic quality of life from my experience in the nursing home. And when I used to work with patients who lived on ventilators, I worked for almost 3 years in a nursing home where people, majority of the long-term care patients were on ventilators, and they either had different diseases that led to that or different accidents. Like some of them were accidents or like strokes and dementia and Parkinson's and different things that got really bad, or ALS, like disease type stuff. And sometimes it was just an accident. And these people, one way or another, were on life support, and there there wasn't quality of life, so it's like I have a very interesting perspective on like what humans really need to live, and
Hmm.
then more than that, like what it is to like live happy. And I feel like people are just not happy right now. Like everyone's just too
Hmm.
stressed out to actually feel happy. Like there's
Right.
too much like fight or flight on the back of your neck. Like you're just kind of like in this zone of like, I should be doing something, I don't feel safe, and now it's like we're in this flight zone or this fight zone. And it's like the fight zone, I feel like, is when people come at other people defensively or the when people attack or come at that somebody defensively. I feel like that's in that fight mode. And then like the flight
Hmm.
mode, I feel, is like, let's go move to another country and like get the hell out of here, but like I feel like we
Right.
can't run from it either. So it's like,
Yeah,
I
and
felt
that's
like, yeah,
exactly how we've been feeling. My husband and I were just like, we really just feel like we just want to leave at this point in time. Like the United States it just feels like we're just going down, 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 downhill so fast. And it's so hard to want to be a part of it when you feel so much negativity. And
yeah,
so my husband and I have talked a lot about moving to another country, but at the same time, I feel like it's my job to stay here and be a part of the change and that shift that's going to help people and get better so that we can be a collective again.
yeah, yeah. Well, be a collective again, like get past these things. We're talking in the future, it's like when this ends, when this starts, when this whatever. And I feel like I can't keep saying when, because it feels
Mm-hmm.
like when the pandemic started, like when it actually did start, when the shutdown officiated or whatever in March of 2020, at least in the United States, in Buffalo, New York, that happened. And it felt like they took the rule book and the way that the world functions and they threw that shit right out the window.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, but don't worry, you can trust us. And it's like, well, the reason that we've always trusted you was because there was a rule book. And as
Yeah.
citizens, we understood the rule book. You follow the
Yep.
rules, you get to live here. You don't follow the rules, you go to jail. That's just like life, right? C'est la vie. We have
Mm-hmm.
rules for a reason. Well, when you threw that rule book out the window, regardless of it being for the reason of a pandemic, I get that what happened, the reason that the rule book had to go out the window was out of your control. But that rule book made people feel safe because we understood things. As soon as you threw
Yeah.
that book out the window, nobody feels safe. There's chaos now. It feels
Exactly.
like even though the order hasn't changed that much, you've now said, well, we don't follow those rules because we're in a pandemic and this is unlike anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not going anywhere. Nothing's
Yeah.
changed. So you've made us feel like life is up in the air. There's rules are out the window, but it somewhat has settled because there's more rules now. So it's back to being rules. We're good. We have a structure again. But now it doesn't feel safe because who's making the rules? Who's deciding what the rules are? Like,
Mm-hmm.
do we have any say in this? Is there any sort of like, no say? And I'm not just talking about the vaccine. Like I'm talking about like legislative things. Like
Yeah,
we
it
just went
doesn't.
through an economic crisis. Somebody's going to have to pay for that. If you don't think that our taxes are going to change after COVID, we just had a
Yeah.
pandemic, guys. Like
Yeah.
shit's going to
Exactly.
change. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're afraid right now because things have changed so much, just wait for the change that's really going to happen. And that's what scares the crap out of me is we don't really have any control on those types of fronts. We don't really get to see the
Exactly.
rule book. So we just are stuck in this humanness where it's like, well, what I need to control is my survival, right? And like the ability for that. And like it makes things like your creations and entertainment and things seem so silly to create. I mean, not to watch. Watching and entertainment is so important because we're at home in a pandemic, right? But
Mm-hmm.
then the world doesn't seem to value entertainment because you can't go out and experience it the way that you used to.
Mm-hmm. So sad.
It's just weird. I don't know. That
It
felt like a
is.
tangent.
It's
Sorry.
That's okay. I mean, it's hard. We're all in a place where we just pretty much all feel weird right now. And it's
Yeah.
hard to explain because what is it other than weird and uncomfortable shift of change?
Yeah. Yeah. I know that's a good point. I think that's why I brought it up. So I'm glad you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But what I was just gonna add a little mention to that tangent is just like it was supposed to be for the people by the people, and that's not what it is anymore.
Mhm. Yeah. And as much as I'd love to say that I feel like my voice and stuff on this is like, I mean, this is how we express ourselves. This is how we have found you and I through podcasting is how I can express myself. And regardless of who's willing to listen or not, the people that are in charge right now, if I'm going to go out and try to be proactive and try to vote for things and try to make moves with the system, the way that it functions right now, even in high school, like I learned about gov, I learned about these different types of things. We learn about the way that the government's supposed to function, but we don't learn how to fight back for it when we feel like it's not functioning right. We were never
Mm-hmm.
taught,
Exactly.
as much as we're supposed to trust that it's balancing itself, that the government has things in place to balance themselves. What happens when we feel like as citizens that that's not being balanced properly? Like like I said, who's making the rule book now that the balance has been skewed and we need new, I mean, the internet is just one example too. Pre-COVID, the internet hasn't been regulated. Like that excelled faster than I feel like the government could keep up with it. And now that's a giant, I don't want to say like monopoly, but like corporate type thing that's
Yeah.
just a giant thing of itself that isn't regulated really, that doesn't have marketing rules, that doesn't have psychological rules, that doesn't have any of these rules, about what's bad for people's mental health after we've seen different research has been bad and nobody's regulating it. So the internet, the people who run these social media monopolies can have whatever regulations they want because there's nothing in place there's no rules in place.
Right.
So,
And it's
you know,
important to have rules. You need to
yeah.
have rules because there are those, if you've listened to the previous episode, there are so many fillers out there that are just absolutely batshit crazy. If some people didn't have rules, we would all end up lazy or just an absolute mess,
Yeah.
especially in the United States. I feel like we have a lot of freedom in ridiculous ways here that people can just do whatever they want. It seems a little much sometimes. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, but
rules are necessary.
it's what lets us talk about this type of stuff. And like we have
Mm-hmm.
way more freedom in America than a lot of other countries right now, which is also really scary that there's other people in the world that don't have the freedoms that we have.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there's so much to be grateful for living here. There's so much opportunity here. I mean, we're able to have things like this podcast and not be worried about, what's
Yeah.
going to come of us and stuff like that. But I also think that the privilege of getting to being able to do that is what keeps us kind of in this cycle of kind of being submissive to the way that our government functions.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't
Yeah.
know, it's like it's hard to feel like you said like that's your responsibility to not leave the country and try to fight for this and whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
like at the same time you can only do so much. And I think that's what we should talk
Right.
about. What can we do as layman people trying to live our lives, trying to be as, I don't even want to say joyful, but like just trying like, I don't want to say live your best life because I hate that too, but like just trying to enjoy it. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like life is about trying to enjoy it. And I
Yeah,
keep
the upward
asking
shift.
everybody, yeah, I keep asking everybody what is this? Um, what is the what's the theory behind the point here and stuff like that. And I love asking it to all of my, like, I just talked to my grandma about it, but what she heard, like little snippets of advice were all about just trying to find joy in your life experience. And if the things that provide you joy are like spending time with your family, then do that. Don't go out and work extra hard so that you can be home with your family. Like, you don't need to work as hard. Like, if your family is what makes you happy, then you don't need to have all that extra money and like do all that extra whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And lots of things make us happy. So
Yeah, and I think
part of,
that
finding that. Go ahead.
another huge step would be to freedom of speech, communicate, use your words, use your feelings, like understand them, voice what you can. If you're feeling down and you're feeling crappy, or if you're in just a weird place, like how we're feeling, talk to somebody about it. Sometimes just being able to relate to someone will really help pull you out of it anyway.
Oh, 100%. I mean, at the end of the conversation, and this is kind of going, our conversation is going the same way my conversation with my grandma went. She was just like, at the end of the day, though, this is what life is like, say la vie, and I'm like, yeah, well, at least I got to talk to you about it. And she's like,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like, if that's what you need, sometimes you need to be heard, and sometimes talking through things will help other people figure things out and maybe bring some light to some
Mm-hmm.
different places. Even if we don't feel like we've come to a resolution after the conversation, the resolution is that you're not crazy, really, is that all of
Mm.
the emotions that you're feeling and all of everything that you're feeling is a construct of your environment and what you're living through.
Mm-hmm.
So continue to remind yourself that, as much as we can be stressed out, and like, I feel like the world is so unhappy right now and is so stressed out. Like, you should see my fingers. Oh my God, they're so bad. Like, I pick at my fingers when I'm anxious, and they've been bleeding for like the past 2 weeks. And I'm trying to figure out why.
Oh,
Because
is
I'm
that what
not,
I'm doing?
yes, it's like we pick at this stuff because there's something going on internally that's telling us that we're stressed and we're scared and we're not safe. So a lot of like finding happiness in the past 2 weeks for me has looked like calming my anxiety, doing
Mm-hmm.
things not to make myself happy, but to deal with my anxiety in a healthy way, to deal with
Mm-hmm.
my anxiety so that it's not continuing to fester, which it still is. So it's clearly like I need to do more, but that's me admitting right now that I have not been doing enough. And I'm going to tell you right now what I plan to do. This is things that we can do in the next today, start with today, but in the next week, try to commit to doing. Every time you start to be like, oh shit, my fingers are bleeding again, this is going to be me to myself. Okay, well, we need to meditate. I did my workout today, and that felt like movement. Movement's a great one. Go for a walk, literally just stretch, like get up and try to touch the ceiling. Just reach up and take a couple of deep
Mm-hmm.
breaths, try to touch the ceiling. And this is stuff, I think, it's all combinations of things. So one thing is not going to fix your stress, and you're going to need
Yes.
to keep doing it. That's the other thing.
Mm-hmm. Consistency.
As much as you can work through your stress, it's going to come right back. As much as I fed myself breakfast, I'm going to need to eat lunch and dinner. And then it's the
Mm.
cycle that keeps on giving,
I like that. That was cute.
Yeah, like it's just going to keep going. And it's a cycle. Like, our life is a bunch of cycles. And being in the flow of the cycle instead of being against it is going to help you so much. So if you recognize, like, I'm on my hormonal swing or whatever, that's my biggest cycle of emotions and energy and stuff like that. You can also get onto a cycle of like workouts. So it's like maybe you work out Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and those other days you do whatever else you can do, but try to schedule yourself in some of these things so that you actually have things in your schedule that are going to decrease your stress, because going into the week that you're going to have stress. There's
Hmm.
going to be things to be stressed about throughout the week. So you should already be planning how to deal with your stress.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
you don't have ways right now that you deal with your stress, and I'm talking about a healthy way, I'm not talking about drinking alcohol. I'm not
Mm.
talking about
Hmm.
like, I don't want to just go for substances because I don't feel like substances are the only ways that we balance our stress. Okay, I'm
Well,
not
just
talking about just binging TV. I'm not talking
right.
about, just turning yourself
Choosing not
off
to
to it.
deal with it.
Right, right. You can't just turn it off,
Hmm.
because if you turn it off and you block it out, it's just going to get worse. It's just going to fester and you're just going to feel worse in each of those things that you're doing to push it away. You're just going
Hmm.
to feel worse and worse, and it's going to be harder for you to deal with the stress because you're going to be more and more detached from it as you push it away. So you're not even going to know what you're stressed about anymore. And now you're just in, like, what I feel like I was in when I was working, in like this high state of anxiety all the time, where you don't ever completely feel relaxed because you've ignored it so long that you actually can't even figure out what you're stressed about. And that in and of itself is your stress.
Yeah.
So I think part of it is the mentalness of it, finding peace with the things in your life that are causing you stress, finding peace with the fact that the pandemic's not going anywhere. At least you should tell yourself it's not going anywhere, because then when it does start to change, or when things start to whatever, then it'll feel less like you're waiting for something and more like it just happened. Don't give yourself a when. Start now dealing with your stress. Start now with figuring out and finding peace with what it is you can't change. And then finding peace with what you can change. Because now, when you find peace with the things you can't change and the things that you can focus on the can instead of the can't, and just one of those cans. Okay, I can't change XYZ rules. I can't change the fact that there's a risk associated with going outside. But what can I do? I can call my friends. I can FaceTime them or whatever. Like, I can figure something else out to do with my time that doesn't feel like you're, stuck inside. Like, I can do something else to socialize. So there might be rules and there might be this, but there's other things that you can do. Focus on the things that you can do, and you can focus on the things that provide you joy. And that's part of just getting the mental portion down. So part number one, I feel like first thing is coming to terms with the things that are causing you to have stress and causing you to feel funky and foggy and feel like you need to disconnect from the funk. Find out the root of that and find peace with that. Go ahead.
Also, if you can't find the root and you don't know what's going on, sometimes it's really easy to isolate, which can go one of both ways. For me personally, I take isolation in a wonderful way. If I get overwhelmed and I feel like a lot's going on, and like right now with me not knowing what's been going on, I spend a lot of time by myself in my office, and I'll pick up a book and I'll start reading, or I'll start drawing, I'll start writing a book. Just spending time with yourself can be super beneficial. But also, if you feel like it's not helping you, absolutely don't isolate yourself, because that can go the absolute worst way possible. And you can find yourself pushing people away from you. And
Mm-hmm.
that's awful. You should never do that.
Yeah, I find that if I'm feeling especially funky and I don't really know why, like if it's like a stress that I can't really figure out the root cause of, then I think the personal isolation can be kind of good, because you can do
Hmm.
other different things to figure it out. So it's like, okay,
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
sitting with myself hasn't allowed for me to figure out what I'm so stressed about. So maybe I should try to just do something physical and try to connect with your physical body first and release some of the physical tension. And from there, you'll find a lot of times when I'm finished working out, I have an emotional release too. Like, my body will physically be holding on to something so much that my brain can't handle thinking about it until my body has worked through the physical tension. So sometimes if you're so fit, if you're so like, if you're blocked, you feel like you're so stressed that you're actually like blocked from it, or you're in like this constant state of stress because you haven't dealt with something that's been stressing you out. Start with
Hmm.
like a physical form, like go for a walk, like do something really to get your heart rate going. Find some 10-minute cardio thing on YouTube. I don't know, like literally anything.
Hmm.
I chase my cat around the house sometimes, whatever you need to do to get your heart rate up.
Or if
Do
you
that thing,
feel,
or that sort of something to get yourself moving. I mean, it could be sometimes people like to do physical like outlets. If you have hobbies that are fun that can physically help you to de-stress, you might need to go get a massage. you might need to like actually do something for yourself to allow for your like get some Reiki done. Like you might need to do something for yourself to allow yourself to actually relax, to release
Mm-hmm.
the to release the actual tension
Yeah.
first, and that sometimes is part of it. And then
I
what you
would
were
like
saying too.
to just note that like therapy is always super useful too. Like
Mm-hmm.
I know that therapy is a big word for people and you automatically assume so many bad things, but therapy has helped me out a lot and it's helped me learn how to process my own emotions to where I don't need a therapist all the time.
That's step two. No, then the other
Mhm.
step, the other side of it. So you need to isolate possibly, or quite possibly, you could be stressed from being around so many people, but you might be the opposite. You might be stressed and need to talk to
Mhm.
somebody. And it might be
Yeah.
like a friend, a therapist, a family member. There's so many different services online. If you like just literally Google therapy, there's so many different things. I know there's Headspace. Is that the one? There's like I think that's an app actually. That's for meditating.
Yeah,
There's
that's
like
like
an
a
app. I forget which app. Oh, sorry. Yeah, there's like a
there's
Headspace is meditation though. What do
yeah,
you know?
BetterHelp.
BetterHelp. That's a good one. Yeah,
BetterHelp's super common.
there's so many good things right now because the other big pandemic, besides COVID, people don't realize the depression, mental health, suicide pandemic that has been happening, but got worse from all this distancing. And I think a lot of it is we don't see each other, so we're not getting those energy exchanges and we feel disconnected from people, and that makes it hard to reach out. Like you might, and then I think the other thing is like there was a survey that I just saw, I forget where I saw it, if it was online, but it was like talking about men and how like 1 in 3 men says that they don't have not even one single close friend or something like that. It was like men are
Mm.
very like unlikely to have like they have friends, but not like a close friend. It was what it was saying. So it's like people they don't always have close friends to talk to. And
Mhm.
people feel weird having to pay for someone to talk to. Like
Yeah, and
that's weird too.
that's
So, but find something free then.
right, exactly. Well, and like the alternative to that is if you don't feel comfortable talking to a therapist and you feel ridiculous, like you have to pay to talk to somebody. It sounds crazy, but talk to yourself. Have an open conversation with yourself. Like, do feelings check ins. Like, all right, me, we're going to sit down today. How are you feeling?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I kind of feel weird. Well, why do you kind of feel weird? And like, have that conversation. If it feels weird doing it out loud, write it down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Internal monologues. I mean, when I'm stressed at night and I can't sleep, that's a lot of what goes on in my head is like I feel stressed. Like I can't sleep. My mind is racing. And then I try to focus on one thing and be like, why are we so stressed about that one thing? Like, what about
Hmm.
that makes you stressed? Like, is it immediately in your danger, or is it going to cause you harm right now? Are you immediately in danger? No, you're not. Okay. So you don't need to be so stressed about that. That's a thought that you can have, but the amount of weight that you're giving it is as if there's a bear in front of you about to attack you. And that's the amount of stress you feel. But what it should really be is more like there's an ant crawling on the floor and it's coming towards me very slowly. Like let's backtrack and get an appropriate amount of stress response to this thing that's not actually hurting me right now. So it's like but it's definitely a perspective shift sometimes with stress and anxieties and stuff like that, but it can also be a very real stress. I'm not trying to say that our experiences don't cause very real amounts of stress. They do. They
Right.
definitely do. But I think our mind has a way of fabricating it when we're alone or when we allow for it to excel and get its own ammunition and become like a monster of its own. And as humans, we should recognize how powerful our minds are. We have the ability to make memories. We have the ability to conjure these demons and these monsters in our heads.
Your mind is the most powerful thing that you own.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have, yeah, I don't want to get into a subtangent of truth about the mind, but like there's just so much research that they've been doing. I'd love to we want to get a Discord going for anybody in the podcast who would like to join. Discord is like used for gamers and stuff, which I think is always funny as I have my brother's old gaming headset on, but you can use the platform for people will use it like to communicate with each other, to go on games and have these different pods and stuff. My partner was showing me how to use it because he games a lot, and it's super cool to use for like getting on a game with someone so you can play together, hear each other, and have like a voice channel at the same time. And it doesn't give you feedback. And it's like a great little thing that they have been developing. You can also have chats and all these other different cool things. And it would be, I would love to get the podcast community or get a community, any community going on
Yeah.
there just for people to ask different questions, find support for each other, start up conversations about the different types of things
Mm-hmm.
that we talk about. And really, like, it would be, I feel like, a great way to start connecting strangers the way that you used to have like little bumping conversations with somebody and you're like, wow, like how coincidental that I met somebody who's so like me at the grocery store. Out of all these hundreds of people at the grocery store, I happened to bump into the person that I had a nice conversation with. I'd love
Mm-hmm.
to make those kinds of conversations and interactions happen again with
Yeah,
people on the internet. And,
absolutely.
if you're needing somebody to talk to one day, and, we have a lot of people in the spiritual community, especially, who feel very alone right now and feel like there's not a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people that they can talk to. They feel like
Mm-hmm.
they have people, but if that person's busy that they normally talk to, that has an open mind, is busy, or they want to find more people, maybe they don't have people in their immediate community that are open-minded and would have a conversation like this with them, it would give a platform for people to connect in that way. And then they could have voice channel conversations about the different types of things, about the different stresses and anxieties and struggles that they're going through, and really have a community to lean on for each
Yeah.
other as far as that goes. And I just
Imagine
think
how
it'd be
much
cool.
healing,
Yeah. I just
how
think
much
that would
healing
be
we could
cool
do.
to have, right? Like, imagine how much support and how much healing to spread that goodness around. And then I think it'd be cool to have something on there, even that was like a movement support group. So it was like, um, kind of like what I do with my accountability group with my online fitness community. We have like a group message, but it's through an app. So I'd love to get just somewhere separate that's completely unrelated to Facebook, because like Facebook's a lot of where the accountability
Mm-hmm.
groups are held is on Facebook. And it's like I'd love to get away from these media outlets and get to somewhere that's more
Yeah,
disconnected, like just an open chat platform
exactly. Just
to
feel
have people
real.
have the ability to talk. And then you can always check in or not check in, and you don't have to go onto a social media platform to get there and get distracted and feel stressed from that. So it's just something on the agenda, because I feel like having community is a big one. I feel like to deal with stress is what I was going to say. I lean on my community so much, and I feel like talking about how much we lean on our communities and like the people that we lean on and stuff like that. I feel like we should try to at least help provide that for other people who might not have that community or feel that community love right now, feeling so divided with
Exactly.
COVID. So I think would love to build more of that community on something like Discord, or Discord
Mm-hmm.
hopefully seems like a really cool outlet. So gonna experiment with that.
Right.
And if anybody listening wants to try to join in on that little experiment, please let us know, because we will get you right in there and see how we feel about it. Let's get playing with it.
Yeah.
Meditations are great, like guided meditations, just like sound. If you just listen to like nice soothing music is like a great way also to decrease stress, just to help find peace in your mind. I do a lot of, if the physical stuff isn't working or breathing exercises aren't working, I'll go for like meditations to guide your mind into a more peaceful place. And gratitude work is another kind of similar to that mindset work and the meditation. Being grateful for things is
Mm-hmm.
a great showing and physically talking about things that you're grateful for. That's gratitude practice, is a great way to shift your perspective. So as much as gratitude practices are not going to change anything physically in your life, because you're not going to um, you're expressing things that are existing currently, it's going to
Mm-hmm.
change your perspective, and that can be the most powerful change that you need
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Gratitude is actually my favorite practice.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime that I notice myself sinking really low and feeling really bad, gratitude is always the first thing that I reach for. And some days it's really, really hard to find things that you're grateful for, but it's so simple. All you have to do is look around. Like if you wake up and you feel like shit and you're in your bed, just say, I'm really glad that I have sheets on my bed. I'm really glad that I have a blanket. I'm glad that I woke up today and my house is warm. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
that easy. Just find the littlest things. And the further that you go with it, you're creating a new routine for yourself to wake up and be grateful. And with
Mm-hmm.
gratitude comes feeling satisfied and happy.
Yeah. 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 Sometimes if you're struggling to feel grateful. Like if you're struggling to find things, like you said, sometimes it can be a real struggle and sometimes it can be super simple. But if it's still even like thinking about simple things, if that's not helping fuel, like if you're not feeling the boost of the great, like of the gratitude of like the warmth of your house and stuff like that, you're like, yeah, but like whatever, those are just like little things. And you find yourself being stuck on the negatives. So like if you find yourself like, what's a good example? Like your animal, like for example, like you could be like feeling ungrateful or feeling like you're lonely, like let's say, but then you could be like, well, I am grateful that I have these different people or this animal or this. And then from that gratitude, understand that like then you can just reach out to somebody, right? So it's like I
Mm-hmm.
feel lonely, I don't feel grateful, I don't feel supported, I don't, like you start to focus on like if you find yourself focusing on the things that are negatives, for every negative there's a positive you can pull from it. So like if you're feeling like the crappiness of like I don't have, you just feel crappy and you're trying to practice gratitude and you're like, well, I'm grateful that I have my lungs because they allow for me to breathe, and like I'm grateful to be
Yes.
alive and stuff like that. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
where it can start. And then from there, saying the simple, obvious things will start to bring more
Mm-hmm.
not so obvious
Yeah.
things to your awareness. And then from
Mm-hmm.
there, it will be like this good um, spiral effect instead
Mm-hmm.
of a bad spiral effect. So it'll be like, but if you find yourself going on the negative, like from the negatives, you can find positives too. So if it's like, I'm not supporting myself with my job or something like that, I don't know, you could be like, but I'm grateful that I have money and I have stability and I have food, I have enough to go on the table and stuff like that. And like I was kind of stressed about my cat because she like has been kind of acting out and stuff like that. And I'm like, but I'm grateful that I can spend time with her and I can figure it out and like stuff like that. There's always like a silver lining, like somebody passed away, but I was grateful for all the
Exactly.
time that I spent with them. And I'm going to honor their memory by being grateful for the things that they taught me. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, as much as sadness can be like, oh, I was grateful for having my mother. Like I was so grateful for having the best mom ever. And unfortunately something happened and your mom passed away or something like that. You could still be grateful for the other things that that person gave to you, and find honoring their memory, or find honoring something, holding on to something or taking something from that and attaching it to yourself and using that as growth to honor what you've been through and what you've lost, even if that thing was a person or lost or whatever, but what you can gain from that loss as well. With every loss, there's a gain.
Right. And like we said earlier, you can take as long as you need to feel things and to process, that is okay.
Mhm.
Sometimes you need a day, sometimes you need a couple days, sometimes you need a week or two. That is okay. Take your time to get to that point, and when you're ready, start your gratitude list. One of
Mhm.
my favorite ones that I like to use every day is I am grateful that I'm here. I'm grateful that I'm alive. I'm grateful that I always have my back no matter what. And I'm grateful that I will always understand myself and my own perspectives.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Feeling maybe grateful for yourself for checking in with yourself, and like grateful for
Mm-hmm.
actually feeling your emotions, like
Yeah.
grateful that you have, I mean, like when somebody's so upset that I always think of like pets, because my brother's going through a really hard time with his dog right now. Like dog's not doing well. And it's like, as much as you're so grateful for like the life and everything that they gave you, like you're upset that the dog might pass and might have to be, could potentially be suffering, and there's sadness that comes with that. You're sad because you're grateful for your dog, though. Like you're upset because you're attached to this thing. It gives you emotional happiness. It has given you emotion. It has given you so much. And a lot of like our sadness and like the feelings, it's like we get into these other emotions. It's like you wouldn't feel sadness for losing your dog, though, if you didn't love your dog so much.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like about that quote that we talked about last time. It's about our job as humans is to make sure that the sadness that we feel, that the love that we feel is worth the sadness that we feel when it's gone. Like the love and the
Yeah.
compassion, all of that is worth it. because we try to enjoy it and value it while we have it, and we're grateful for it, right? Being
Mm-hmm.
grateful for things and like appreciating them builds more gratitude. It helps us be present and appreciate the things that we have, so that when we don't have them, it doesn't feel, you know what I mean? We can understand that, well, at least we were grateful when we had them. Like, how many times can you be like, well, I wish I spent more time with them before they were gone or whatever, you know?
That's how I feel every time I get mad at my animals. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I can't be mad at you. I won't
Like,
have you
really
forever.
though? Yes. Yeah, we're so willing to hold on to all of these negative feelings, but we got to hold on to the love. We got to hold on to
Exactly.
what it is that makes that worth it.
It's so important.
And that's I feel like the life lesson, right? Like, why are we living life? To
For
be
love.
grateful and to appreciate and to experience love in all
Mm-hmm.
forms. To experience love even in the form of sadness.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're that sad, you really loved that much then.
Love takes every form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that was great. I think maybe, do you want to close with some thoughts or meditation, or how would you like to close today?
You know, I was thinking that it would be lovely to do a meditation since I have this couch right here I can just lean up against.
Yeah, if you want to get cozy, to invite our lovely guest. Thank you so much for joining us, guys, and just being, I mean, here, being alive, for
Thank you for
being,
existing.
for just being. So thank you for being you and joining us. And we'd love to hear what you think about our conversations, about the Discord thing, about any feedback really that you have, how you're doing. If you need a friend to talk to, reach out to us because we are around. But for now,
Mhm.
please take a moment to find a comfortable seat for yourself. If you are able to and would like to, I'd invite you to take some deep breaths and close your eyes and sit back, maybe sit up tall, maybe lay down. Just find yourself feeling supported. Maybe roll your shoulders up and back and down. Maybe, wipe your clammy hands off your pants like me. Wiggle those fingers. Plant your feet on the ground. Plant whatever it is that you need to on the ground and just get cozy. And I just invite you to join me for a deep breath in and out. And just as you find your way to focusing on your breath, I invite you to imagine a warm color or any sort of color that makes you feel peace. For me, it was kind of orange and then blue. Or just imagine the feeling of love, whatever that kind of feels like to you. If it feels like the warm embrace from a friend, if it feels like the shimmering in the water droplets on the grass when the sun shines through them, if it's a warm breeze, if it's your animal laying its head on your hand, whatever love feels like to you, focus on that. Just keep breathing. With every inhale, we remind ourselves that love is all around us. And we exhale, releasing the stress that our shoulders carry. Inhale, reminding ourselves why we are here on this beautiful earth. And exhale out the heaviness that comes with being a human. I honor you for being here, for being a human, for having this experience and doing your best. We have the ability to remember and create with our minds. Honor how powerful the spiritual part of your humanness is. Honor how powerful your physical being is. As you inhale, try to connect that feeling of love to your physical body, expanding that you are love, just like the thing you were imagining feeling, it's you. You are the embodiment of love. You can choose your actions to foster and create more of this. When we welcome in everything as it is, we welcome the love experience. When you find yourself slipping away and thinking about things, that's okay. Just find yourself back to your breath. Remind yourself that your human mind is powerful and goes on lots of excursions, but to bring it back to your breath. Remember how supported you are being born here. Whether you feel it from your family, from your friends, from the earth herself, from the light in the sun. We're here to experience, to spread the love just by being. And as you continue to focus on that feeling, maybe bring something into your awareness that you're grateful for. Reminding yourself that to express the things that you're grateful for and to focus on them is to attract more of them to you. More of the things to love. More experiences of joy and happiness. Taryn wants to join us. And when you find yourself in this peaceful place, really take it in. And when you're ready, bring it with you back into your physical body, down your spine, feeling that love like a waterfall over your head. And wiggling your fingers as it washes over you, maybe wiggling your toes. Welcome you back to this beautiful existence. Thank you again for being here with us, and namaste.